talking about taking it to the next level. Not just experimenting in dialogue, but experimenting in relationships in general. Dr. Chloe Carmichael is back with us. She's a regular guest. I like your hair now.
Oh, thank
a little
you.
lighter, looks very good.
And this is for our bookstore segment.
Yeah,
yes?
thank you. I always forget to do that.
Yes.
This is, but it's also one of Carrie's media bias. And how she's just such in a horrible position as a conservative in New York. And inter-party dating are Carrie's two topics, totally two topics. And so, Dr. Carmichael, you've written a book that it's a guidebook to how to do it, how to date someone from the other end of the ideological
Well, the book is
spectrum.
more, it's the 10 Commandments of Dating, Dr. Chloe's 10 Commandments of Dating. So since you are the lawgiver to us, we want to know specifically on our
Lawgiver.
politics show. What?
What is that word? I got to Google it. What is the word?
She's creating the laws here, the 10 Commandments.
Oh.
It's a biblical phrase.
Okay.
Mr. 2 Corinthians. So, Dr. Chloe, you first of all, tell us a little bit about the book, and then secondly, how can we apply your principles to this concept of dating someone who doesn't think like you?
Sure. Well, thanks so much for having me back. It's always good to be with you. So the 10 Commandments of Dating book is something that I've seen because in my practice in New York, of course, there's just everyone is trying to find the right person. But in today's dating world, a lot of our old protocol and things like that for dating are just out the window. So I found that clients were just looking for kind of a guidebook of how do I actually go about dating now in a way that's going to help me find a partner. And of course, I would be happy to talk about how to apply some of those 10 Commandments of dating to people who might be dating across the aisle.
So Carrie can't find a conservative man in the city of New York, so that's why she keeps asking. What we won't ask you to list all 10 because people need to go and buy the book. But what do you think would be the most important commandment in a situation where you just are not people who agree on certain topics?
Sure, there are so many great ones that I think could be applicable here. One I'll talk about is rule number 9, control your mind. And so with rule number 9, control your mind, what it means in the book is to be careful that you're not daydreaming too much about your crush, because your mind can actually start to feel as if you've spent all this time with that person, and then you feel a little over dependent on somebody before you even maybe had, date number 2 or 3 with them. But the way that that applies to politics is if we find out that somebody voted differently than we did, our mind jumps to all kinds of stereotypes about that person that may or may not even be true. And we're spinning this whole story in our mind that may or may not even be true. So I really want to encourage people to actually talk to the person and say, oh, well, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Why did you vote that way? Or why do you feel this way about the issue?
A lot of people just immediately, though, put a block up. If you feel this way, it's what our last guests were talking about, is that people will turn it off immediately.
Yeah, if you look on Bumble, there are guys who say, no Trump voters. And I'm sure that a lot of women haven't
you didn't vote for
voters.
Trump, so
no,
you're
I didn't. But at the same time, I would never put that.
It's easier said than done to
profile.
control one's mind, though. So I mean, these I'm assuming these commandments all are easier said than done. So are there practices that people can put forth
Absolutely.
to try to actually do that?
Of course, yes. So I want to share some examples, okay, of how that could work. So for example, it's important to have the same values as the person that you're dating. We can all agree on that. But what people don't realize is that you can have different values, or you can have the same values, but have different ways of implementing them. So for example, we could both be against racism, but you could feel like the best way to bring that to fruition is to get rid of affirmative action. And somebody else could say, well, I'm against racism, and that's why I passionately advocate for affirmative action. I would like to see those two people be able to say, well, we actually have the same value. We both are against racism. We just have different ways of trying to bring that forward. So that's, one way that you could control your mind is to try to find the common values that you actually do share, even if you have different implementations.
I like that.
It is the challenge, though.
No, but so maybe in this scenario, you could say, okay, well, we will agree to disagree about specifically affirmative action. However, let's find a creative way where we both agree we could express ways to prevent racism.
We both hate Hitler.
Yes.
There you go. Just start at a basic level.
Yeah.
We both hate Hitler. Now let's work from there. But it sounds like these folks need to go to one of these dinners, though, because that's sort of the problem in politics, society in general, is getting one side to agree or concede that the other side, while I completely vehemently disagree with how you want to do it, does love the country and is doing the things that, because I think a lot of people are just conflicted about what someone's motivation is. And I think a lot of people on the left believe that the Republicans are motivated by another thing than we are. So when do you know that it's just not going to work?
When is it beyond the pale? Yeah, that's a great point. So I would say that if you can't bring it down to some kind of common value, and again, we have to remember that there's a lot of wiggle room there. So you could be really pro-welfare because you feel like it helps the poor. Somebody else could be really anti-welfare because they feel like it ultimately disempowers the poor. But those two people actually have the same value of wanting to support poor people to gain jobs and autonomy. So again, I would say that it's beyond the pale if after your best efforts of both of you really trying to see what is the common value that we share, if you actually really don't share the common value, then it's probably not the best partner. But I think we often have more in common than we think.
Okay, well then I don't know. We're gonna have to go in a second, but like the big question for me though is, these are exercises I would say would work really well and be important about the politics stuff if you were in a longer term relationship and you'd been with someone for a while. Is there an argument at all that if you have to work this hard at the very beginning to try to find some sort of common ground on date 1 or 2, that is there a point where it becomes too much work to really even, let's not deal with this? I mean, is that a part of an issue?
Well, for some people, yes. But if we can try to, again, remember that I think the way it becomes not fun is if you think, oh my gosh, I'm actually sitting here potentially dating Hitler. But if you can remember...
We'll all agree not to do that at the very
But if you're able to find out that we actually have some common values and we're just looking at maybe a slightly different way of getting there, then sparring can actually be pretty sexy. Many clients find it kind of exciting to have a little bit of an argument. And
I think I'm gay, Carrie, because it gets heated out here. Well, Dr. Chloe Carmichael, thank you so much. You can make sure you find her book, Dr. Chloe's 10 Commandments of Dating,
which is available at Ask Dr. CC, askdrcc.com.
Oh, excellent. We'll put that in the comments also. We always love having you here. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next time Carrie needs some help dating a Democrat.
I actually have an idea.
Oh Lord. Oh gosh, are we going out in the field?
All right.
Okay.
We'll talk.
Bring it back. We'll back for that. We're going to go out in the field. We're going to take we're going to set cameras up at a speed dating session for you. Oh my God, that's next week's episode.
Speed dating with cross-political aisle affiliation. And you too, Clay.
No,
we'll find you a nice Trump red stater.
I appreciate being by myself.
Overalls,
listen,
sexy.
Listen. I'm not interested in it. Okay, give it up. That's the third. That's your third mission, by the way.
That was one of my New Year's resolutions.
To try to find to do something that is not wanted at all.
If you have any ideas, let me know.
Or not.
Any.
Or not. Let's get off of that horse.